Friday, late afternoon, early evening in the beautiful Southern California area here. And we're going to have a great time on the podcast today. We're going to look at a short session of realizations that will awaken the bliss within you. These are key realizations that I have found have been fundamental in my own life to awaken me to the other realm. Isn't that what we want? We want to go, we're here and that's fine. This place is cool. I like it. It actually gets a lot better when you get to that place, but we want more than just physical living. We want the senses to rise above the earthly plane, and we want to live in that other reality. So again, Streams of Light Podcast, thanks so much for joining me. Chris Anthony with you. And I want to also say in the beginning of this podcast, if you're watching on any of the four services we stream on, go ahead and send us a like and chat it up with us. Send us a chat to let us know that you're out there. And if you have any thoughts or questions, let me know. And if you are on Facebook Live, you can click on the WhatsApp link and you could even potentially call in. So if that's what you want to do, then the option is there. Realization Friday, kicking off the weekend with Bliss, doing everything we can. You know, I don't know about you, but I do pretty much, at this stage in life, I've come to the realization that we pretty much have to go after the bliss. It's the bliss body, as some refer to. We have to go after the bliss. The bliss is the key. And I have found so many things that contribute to that, but I'm going to cover just a handful today. And the first one I want to share with you is realize that you are living in a body. Realize that you're living in a body, not that you are your body. That's huge, because if you completely identify with your body, if that's all we think we are is the body, it can be kind of depressing. It can be, especially as you get a bit older and things start wearing out, like hips and joints in your mind, right? So realize that you're living in a body, you're living in a house, a tent made of earth, right? The body's composed of the elements of the earth. So realize that you're living in a body, because when you get too attached to any one thing, it only leads you down the rabbit hole of deeper delusion. For example, if you think that you are your body and you get maybe not such good news from a doctor, or maybe you have an accident that disfigures you or something like that, it can, look, it's going to be depressing. I can say I've been through that personally, but here's the thing. Once you realize that the sum total of you is not your body, then no matter what happens, you keep focusing on the life that's within you. That's why if you've ever been in a situation, I hope you haven't, but if you ever been in a situation where you've been around a family member, a loved one, a friend, or maybe you were at an accident scene or something like that, if you've ever been around a situation where you've seen someone who's expired, who's left their body, you can certainly tell, because when you look at their body, it's like the house is there, but there's no lights. There's no lights on in the house. You see that lifeless body, the life force, that sheen, that glimmer, that's gone, because we are literally a soul living in a body. So realize that you're living in a body. That's a huge, huge plus if you can realize that. And then realize in the scheme of things that you are basically a creator. And some people may struggle with that when they think about life, or they think about this earth or the cosmos, but start small. Think about your own life. So realize that you are a creator, starting with your own perceptions. Let me give an example. Two guys walking down the street, going into town. They walk under a tree, and just for the illustration's sake, twig falls out, hits them on the head. Both guys have the same experience. First guy thinks, ooh, the twig hit me on the head. That's a bad omen. That guy stops and thinks, should I even go into town? He thinks, certainly something bad's going to happen to me. The other guy takes that situation and he's not thinking, something bad's going to happen to me, he might even think, oh, that's a good sign. That's a sign that shows me that there's a God and that I'm seen, or that there's synergy in the universe, or that there's timing. It's miraculous, right? Right? That's perception. How you perceive things affects how you feel, and how you feel, those feelings, those thoughts, they're all energetic waves that create who you are and attract to you what you deserve. Now, that may sound kind of hard in some cases. I've had some tragedies happen, and I've had people come along and say, well, everything happens for a reason, or you only attract what you deserve. And I don't like to lay that out as a broad statement, but in reality, one thing I've looked at, even in my life, even when I've had some tragedies, I've looked at, well, it's not my fault necessarily, but how I perceive it and what I'm drawing to myself is a very important thing to consider. Doesn't necessarily mean that when bad things happen, we always drew it to ourselves. I'm not saying that, but we have to be totally open and honest with ourselves and try and discern between the things that we've drawn to ourselves and the things that have just happened by chance, because everyone has things happen by chance that don't say a thing necessarily about who you are, or how loved you are, or how hard you've worked, or what you deserve. That's just life. Life is just that way. But if you perceive everything as a blessing, even the tough times, and this is a hard one. This is one I've had to learn, but I've finally learned good enough that I think most of the time I'm successful. If you've learned that even the bad things, or the things that are perceived as bad, let's just say they're hard. In what sense? They're painful, they're lesson oriented, they're not easy. In that sense, even those things can be turned around for what? For good. I've had some terrible, tragic things happen to me. I had an accident in 2012, and it was a surfing accident, and I got hit in the eye, and I ended up having to have 5 surgeries and lost the vision in my left eye. But now I look at that as a great blessing. Why? How? Well, the one thing I noticed, one of the things I learned in life, if you have something taken away physically, or something is removed or is lost, doesn't matter if it was your fault, someone else's, doesn't matter. Actually, there is, I think fault itself is probably a misnomer. But anyways, I'm speaking in human terms here. It doesn't matter who caused it or how it happened or anything like that. I saw that eventually as I dug deep into life and into stillness and prayer and things like that, what I realized was nothing is ever taken away without something being gained. It's that old saying, well, when God shuts a door, he opens a window somewhere. That is true in my experience. And I have learned, the first thing I learned in that experience was how to find peace in the middle of a storm. And that can be a tough thing. It'd be a very tough challenge. The second thing I learned is it opened up a whole new world of sensory perception to me. Have you ever noticed if someone can't see with 2 eyes, how good their hearing is? Yeah. Or someone who can't maybe hear, how good their seeing is, how they could read lips. Yeah. And that's just scratching the surface. This thing goes deep. It goes deep. So how we perceive things is an incredible statement for how we will not only interpret our world, but what we actually end up making of it, because we're creators. So how we look at things, how we perceive them, really creates our own reality. I ended up looking at this whole thing as a blessing in disguise, and it's wind in my sails. It's propelling me forward into deeper things. It's a blessing in that it taught me some really, really great lessons. Also, to be full of gratitude for the good things we have, to learn to shift to gratitude for things that we should be thankful for. And once we focus on gratitude for the things we have rather than don't have, that's an amazing plus. A great teacher once said, why look down the sewers when you can look up at the clouds and the sky and the stars? He said every great work of art or piece of music will have something that you could potentially criticize, but why go there? Why not enjoy the beauty that's right in front of you for what it is? I think that's such wise advice, because I think particularly in this day and age, and if I look at, I hate to say it because I'm streaming on it right now, but if I look at like services like Twitter, how many freaking trolls are we going to have that just do nothing but attack people? I mean, What is wrong? What's going on? Why are we looking down the sewers all the time? Why are we making up false things about people and choosing half-truths and not giving people the benefit of the doubt? Don't look down the sewers. Look up at the sky. See the blue sky or the stars or the moon, and be reverentially worshipful about the beauty that's all around us. That will change your frequency. That will trigger bliss. This is what this podcast is about today. How to wake up and trigger that bliss that's already within you, that's already there. The mind keeps us from it, but if we can still the mind and put aside its judgmental criticism and that discursive element, then we can begin to enjoy that peace and that bliss that is native in our souls. So the other thing I want to mention about realization, and this is I'm kind of coming back around full circle. Have you ever had a point in your life when you kind of start thinking, you go, back then when I did this or that was really good. I don't know what happened, but I want to go back to that. That's what I'm having lately with this one thing I like to call Bhakti, or devotion, or as we say in Western spirituality, worship. Bhakti, devotion, thanksgiving, praise, all that stuff. Now, you may be like a Buddhist, for example, who doesn't necessarily believe in a divine personage, right? Is that a word, or is that like a cognate of a different language? Anyways, you might not even believe in a personal God. That's okay. But having a devotion, a reverence, and a gratitude for, if you have a realization of a divine person in your own spiritual aspirations and practice, then go with that. If the teacher that has led you to higher things was so connected with the divine that you see them one and the same, then go with that. This I've found can be very, very powerful in life. And actually, I think it's probably one of the best things. I'm going to give props to Western spirituality, which I have to admit, I kind of struggle with that, but I give props. I give props to the Western spiritual existence of worship and music, worshipful music, where people gather and they lift up their voices in unison and with one heart and one mind. And that is a powerful thing. I put on some music this morning, good old time music that was very devoted, adoration-based, worshipful, and man, it just lifts your soul. So don't lose the devotion, don't lose the bhakti, and whatever you find yourself in, whatever faith family you have awoken to, once you wake up and you go, wow, here I am. Wherever you're at, I would say, unless you feel a strong inclination to leave for whatever good reason, stay there and go with what you taught. There was a guy in the East named Lahiri Mahasha, and he was in the lineage of Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda. And what he told all of his devotees, whether they were Christians or Buddhists or Hindus, he said, I'm going to teach you some techniques that'll help you in your breathing and in getting closer to God, to the divine. But he said, whatever religion you're in, he said, if you read the Bible because you're a Christian, then you should continue to read it and get on your knees and pray to God. If you're a Muslim, then get down on your knees on your mat, your prayer mat, and do your thing. If you're a Jew, do your thing. If you're a Buddhist, then do your loving kindness meditation. He encouraged that. I love that. Whenever I come across a spiritual teacher who's not threatened by other spiritual teachers or other different faith families, I just think right on. Because I think that's what the world to come is like. We think because we are ego-based and we are tribal in nature, we think that all these guys are, this guy's the bomb, but those guys, they're deceived. What if you got there and they were all waiting for you smiling and they were all friends? That would be kind of embarrassing, wouldn't it? Especially if you were preaching division. So I don't preach that anymore. I don't. I look for the good in everything, and I look for the good in every teacher. And I've found things from Sufi mystics to Hindus to Christians to Buddhists. It's all, and to the Tao. I love Lao Tsing's work as well. So You know what? Life is, it's a treasure. There's treasures everywhere. Wherever you go digging, whatever land you're in, wherever you dig, you're going to find treasures. So have that bhakti, have that adoration, have that devotion to your interpretation of the ultimate, the one, the divine, God. And, you know, as you do that, I think it not only increases acceptance of, as I said, the other faith families, it increases your acceptance of self. Why? Because your higher self is the higher self is basically the soul essence, the Purusha, as they would say in the East, the soul, divine. And God breathed into man the breath of life, and he became what? A living soul, divine. So as you have reverence for the divine, it's only natural that you reverence that divine that's in you. And what I've noticed is the more you show devotion to God, to divine in that sense, the more you start to reverence the little things like the body. You start to feed it better. The mind, you get it out of the gutter. The heart, you learn to begin to control and look at your attachments and what am I attached to? Is this healthy? Or is this leading me down a more difficult path of pain later on? You begin to become reverential of all the things that you are, because if you think about it, not only is the soul divine, the body is quite remarkably made, fearfully and wonderfully, as one ancient text said, beautiful, reflecting that beautiful creativity and divine goodness. I see it not only in the human, like sometimes I'll just be in my house. It happens with one of my cats. They'll walk up and climb up in my chest and look into my eyes. And sometimes I am just flabbergasted at the beauty of those little creatures and their eyes and how they see things outside of the spectrum that we see and how they're such meditating sages. Yeah, I'm learning how to meditate from my cats. So that bhakti, that devotion will lift you up. It will help you respect yourself. Self-respect goes a long way in life. And then realize also that small physical practices either free you or bind you. This is fascinating. It's not necessarily so dualistic that everything should be examined with great scrutiny. I have some friends who really stress over, like I would say, pleasing God is the way they speak of it. And I don't think that the intensity should be like in a fearful, like I'm afraid if I don't do everything just right, I'm going to get smoked. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I am talking about is being wise to the extent to realize that little actions amount to who we are in a greater sense. So, for example, I've been on the path of Raja Yoga, which is the eightfold yogic path. And within the tradition of Raja is not only asana, which is position, but there's also a practice of body control that is related to muscle control. And I've been practicing that particular branch of Raja for about 2.5 years. And I noticed a change after about 6 months, but it wasn't so dramatic. And I've really, really, really noticed a change the last couple months. And the practice is similar to the yogic practices, but it has more to do with a very unique blend of pranayama, which is energy control, and asana in particular with the certain positions with tensing and releasing. Now, if I decide I want to make a fist, for example, my mind thinks, make a fist. Now I, through my own willpower, will contract the muscles of my hand, my fingers, so on and so forth. It's a very subtle truth, but even that one little action, you are actually sending, think about it, when you contract your muscle, like if you contracted your muscles all day long, you would burn a lot of energy, right? We would say that if you worked out too hard, you'd burn a lot of energy. Well, what you're doing is you're not just contracting your muscles, you're actually sending energy to that body part. And with a very careful practice in this branch of Raja Yoga, I have found that you begin to learn how to control all the muscles in your body at will. And Swami Vivekananda, who came to the US in 1893, in his lectures spoke about how some individuals in the practice of Raja Yoga have learned how to contract and relax every muscle in the body. Imagine that. And not just for the sake of, hey, I can, wiggle my ears or, squeeze my right butt cheek, but not my left. I mean, it's kind of a cool trick. But the thing is, when you start to learn how to control the body, you're sending energy, and this increases day by day, like watering a plant, an organic sort of growth. And this is a very, very powerful practice that amounts to a person who has a better handle on what's going on in their body, being able to scan the body, find out where there's tensions, where there's weakness, where there's even potentially disease or lack of circulation. And the practitioner can then deal with that accordingly based on these skills. Other things like what I'm doing, other little things that amount to who we are, what I do, in my spare time. I could read a book. I can have fun. I can play a game. There's nothing, it's not to say that these, again, I don't want to go after the moralistic thing, but all these little actions either free us or bind us. And so it's not to say we shouldn't have fun or we shouldn't have ice cream or play games or anything like that. But what we should be mindful of is we should be honest with ourselves on what the practices are and what they do for our total being, body, mind, soul. Because ultimately, I'm all about freedom. And that's what this podcast is about. I'm not coming on this podcast. I want people to like it. I want you to make a comment down there, but I'm not coming on to get followers or to get recognition. I'm just coming on to share. Here comes my cat. Watch this. Oh, there's a tail. I thought their cats are so sly, they can somehow walk by and the tail will go right underneath the lens. But this is Macy the cat. Maybe I can get her over here because she's a beautiful Savannah cat. And I want you guys to know when I'm talking about Macy. Oh, there she is. She doesn't want to, I understand. She doesn't want to be showcased on the internet right now. And I'm okay with that. She's going back in front of the camera lens. Let's see what she does this time. Tail's like right there, hanging there because she knows I'm looking there. So she's trying to get my attention. So realizing that those small physical practices either bind you or they free you. And choosing reverently those things with gratitude that make us free people. Because as I said about the podcast, this is all about bliss and freedom. That's why I'm here. I'm here to bring comfort and as much understanding and bliss and freedom as I can. Now, another thing that I realized as I had the Bhakti, the adoration going on this morning, as I mentioned, I had my music on. And I thought of that old phrase in spiritual circles, thy name. Remember that? Thy name. There's two of them, actually. I'm going to cover two. Thy name and thy word. And this is fascinating. Realize that thy name, that it's more than a religious concept that has all these stigmas and collective agreements from the different doctrinal camps. Realize that thy name is an essence. Thy name is an atmospheric reality to be both saturated and drenched in. That's my perspective as a mystic. That's my perspective as a seeker. That thy name, you can say, well, some people might be saying, well, isn't thy name God? Yeah, of course. That's just one term that conjures up a bunch of representations of what we're talking about. I try and avoid using those terms all the time, like other spiritual sages, because, it's just like, if I say God, then you might have had a bad experience in a church and now you've got all these negative feelings rising up. So, but realize that thy name is an essence. So yeah, you could say God is an essence, but realize that thy name is like, here's a good example. This comes down to the nitty gritty of human life. If you did something bad, your dad might say, hey, when you did that, when you threw an egg at Mr. Johnson's car, you took my name and what would your dad say in the 70s or 80s? They'd say, you took my name and dragged it through the dirt. Okay, that's just an example. The example is there for the fact, for this, that my name, according to Dad in this statement, is everything I stand for. It's everything I am. And the reason why your human father was upset, he's like, hey, I'm not about destroying people's property. I'm not about making war with the neighbors. So now we think of thy name in the cosmic sense. Thy name is an essence. It's everything that the one, the everlasting, the ever present, the all knowing, the everywhere present, the all existing, the one consciousness. It's an atmospheric reality. It's an essence, and it's there for saturation, for union, for love, to be drenched. We used to have this one room. We had this little room where we would look to help people with healings. And before they went in for the healings, we'd send them to what? The soaking room. I like that. The soak, before we wash the clothes that are really dirty, not that people are dirty, but you get it. Before we wash the clothes, we soak it. And so soaking is great. Matter of fact, I used to do these Bhakti music worship sessions where all we would do is adoration, soaking. And I remember a friend came over once and he goes, we went like an hour and a half, and time just flies. When you get to that state where, you felt like you're caught up into a different realm, where you're taken out of your human senses, like, sight, sound, touch, you're just brought to this other place that is so real and so powerful. It's almost like, where did time go? That concept of time is just like changed. And I remember this guy, it'd been an hour and a half, and we finally finished. And he said, he goes, Chris, thank you so much for that. And then he goes, I came over here because I wanted to talk to you about a problem I had. Because, my friends like to talk to me about their problems. I get it. He goes, I wanted to talk to you about this problem, but I can't remember what it is. And then I looked at him and I said, bingo, because that's the idea. Thy name is an essence to be saturated and drenched in. And when you got the thy name thing going, I don't know, it's another step deeper into the bliss body. And then there's, of course, thy word. Now, in most cases, people focused on a written word, which is okay, a written word that represented certain spiritual concepts. Now, what I want to flag to you is, remember that mental concepts, as much as they're fun to chew on and so on and so forth, it's more important to experience than it is just to listen, isn't it? To practice, to be a practitioner of something. There's plenty of people who've read many, many books, many, many spiritual stories, and can quote to you all kinds of things. Doesn't necessarily mean they're happy. Just like rich people can have a lot of money and a lot of toys and a lot of beautiful homes in different locations, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're peaceful, blissful, or happy. So remember, the practice is important. And to me, thy word is not just necessarily a set of commands, although sometimes thy word can be a good light or guide. Thy word is a sound of resonance. And this is something that is prevalent in both Eastern and Western spirituality. It's very interesting. We'll start with the West. And the predominant spiritual group in the West, of course, is Christianity. The Christ of Christianity was called in the Gospel of John the Word, which comes from the Greek word and concept logos, where we get the word logo from. The logos meant expression. And I find that fascinating. So the word is not so much a tablet, a stone tablet to crush your back as much as an expression, a divine expression. Now, in the East, that word, there's another cat just going by me. They're everywhere. Tails and fluffy buns and all that stuff. Word in the East is very similar to the Western spiritual word amen. Word in the East, or that concept of divine word, is like amen. Instead of A-M-E-N, it is A-U-M, om. We pronounce it om and we spell it O-M, although the original idea was A-U-M. And that word is called in the East the seed syllable. Now, here's how it dovetails with Western, this is amazing, how it dovetails with Western Christianity. You never think that the yogis would be saying kind of the same thing with just a slightly different nuance than the West, but it happens all the time. So the om is considered to be the seed syllable, sort of the first element of creation, which, by the way, that's what they say in the Gospel of John about the Christ, the Word. He's, the first of creation, and all things were made through him, and not anything was made that was made. So that's the same idea there. And there's a practice in the East, a yogic practice called, it's called Nada Yoga, which relates to the word nadi, which means spiritual, which means energetic pathways. Nod, or actually nod means stream, but not the word nadi. We talk about the nadis in the body, with the spiritual pathways. And that, the idea with the om, which is like the amen, the idea is it's a seed syllable, and that in the body, the energy is what? It's moving. It's vibrating. It's making a sound. And what's the sound like? The sound is like a waterfall, like many waters. I say that from experience of practicing Nada Yoga. Once you learn how to listen to the seed sound, now the seed sound is in all of creation. All matter is basically moving, vibrating. All matter is energy, and it's vibrating, and its vibration is sound. And sound is making noise. You can't always hear it until you learn how to tune to listen, but that's the practice. If you're interested in that, you can Google it, Nada Yoga, and you can look it up and start practicing. You eventually will hear it, and it sounds like you're at the bottom of Niagara Falls. Have you ever been there? Yeah, it's powerful. And once you get there to the cosmic sound of Om, you will feel like you're standing at the base of a waterfall, and that's just in your body. Then another sound will eventually come. Not the sound within your body. It's very similar, but slightly nuanced. It's slightly different. And that is the Om that's in all of creation. You will actually hear the seed sound that's outside of your body. Now, here's the fascinating thing. This is what I love about the synergy of East and West. Because you think about it, in the West, for those of us who are part of the big Christian movement throughout the 200 years of this country, it really came, that movement came from almost the East, the Middle East, right? So the Middle Eastern man, the Apostle John, wrote in Revelation, and I was caught up into heaven, and I saw one that looked like the Son of Man, and he started to describe Jesus. And he said he had hair white like wool, and he was wearing white garments with a golden girdle. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead. I was weak-kneed, and I fell down. And what did he say? And he said, fear not. I'm what? The Alpha, the Omega. That's the A and the Z, the beginning and the end. And John said about this, he said, and I heard his voice, and it sounded like what? Like voice of many waters. Isn't that crazy? It's so crazy. I love it. I'm a surfer. I'm just so stoked on that. It's amazing. So that's the seed sound. That's thy word. So it's not merely a set of commands. If we've relegated our own spirituality to a set of commands to try and just please God, which we're already children and he's well pleased with us. That's such a short-sighted perspective of thy word. Thy word is the power, the origin, the all in all of creation. And it's in you. It's in me. And it's permeating the whole cosmos and every successive subtle realm that exists in the cosmos, whether seen or unseen. It's pretty powerful. So thy word is like thy name. You can kind of like resonate and saturate in that. And that's what the practice of Nada Yoga does. You learn how to merge with it. And once you learn how to merge, it's pretty powerful, because I'm just going to give you one little secret tidbit here. Once you learn how to merge with that sound in the practice of Nada Yoga, it's not only sound and vibration, but it's actually also light too. So that's just a little teaser. So you have to jump into it further. This is where we're at. We're realizing that life is so much more than we first thought. That if we consider ourselves a body, the only thing that's in our existence is the things that relate to the sense organs. But life is so much more. And that's why I go inward every day into the holy tabernacle of the divine, that being the Holy of Holies, within, deep within. Why? To turn off the outer senses, turn it down, and begin to awaken to the wonderful world, well, the kingdom of heaven, as it was said. The great and awesome dwelling place of the Most High, which starts in the Holy of Holies right here. You go inside to find God. The kingdom of heaven is within, the Christ said. This is a secret that once you find it, oh yeah, once you find it, you know you're done. It doesn't mean you don't enjoy life or do things. It makes everything better. It makes everything better. But once you go within and you find that, you're done. You'll never be the same again. You will never, ever, ever be the same again. And you will be filled with all the wondrous joy that is in the divine itself, because you have discovered one of the greatest secrets in life, that within you is all things. All things are in you. I read recently, there's a lot of pseudo science when it comes to the quantum world. And I know we tried to spiritualize a lot of these quantum theories. So I understand that. And this may be just another theory, but I read somewhere that the whole universe may be folded in to every thing in the physical world. Wouldn't that be wild? If somehow you could go inside yourself into one of those vortexes: heart chakra, wheel, heart, throat chakra, medulla, third eye, ajna chakra. What if you could go into your own energy center and realize that there was a whole universe, a gateway, a vortex? Man, just like a movie. And that's where those special effects guys got the idea. Because as you get deeper into this thing called spirituality, you will find that there are vortexes in your body, and that there is divinity everywhere, and there is energy all around and within you. It's just a matter of waking up. This is Streams of Light Podcast. I'm Chris Anthony. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to call this Realization Friday. I don't know if I'm going to do it every Friday, but man, I'm pumped. Maybe it's going to have to be a regular Friday thing, because it's kind of like, Friday is like party time, right? I mean, I'm not going to go out and get drunk or anything, but hey, party time to me is like, yeah, I got a little buzzed off talking about all this stuff. I hope you guys did too. If you're watching on Facebook Live, give us a like and put a comment in there. Same for YouTube. We really do want to get this trending and get this out there. So like the podcast, send me a chat, and we'll see you next time on Streams of Light Podcast.